Australia has these incredible paperbark trees that get their name from the layers of thin bark that are kind of like this big stack of paper. And paperbark has an amazing variation in colour and texture, and it's a completely renewable resource that you can find just about everywhere. And I walk past these paperbark trees on my way to the office every single day, and then when I get into the office, there's even one right outside my window. And it's got me wondering whether we could build something with the bark. Here's how that turned out. So finding paperbark in Melbourne is pretty easy. You just check out a street on Google Street View, and if there's a Melaleuca there, which is the scientific name for a paperbark tree, then you can go drop by and take a bit of material. It's really great being able to find all of the trees because then we only need to collect a small amount of material from each one, and that prevents us harming any of the trees by collecting too much bark. And every single piece of bark is unique, and this is one reason why I would normally make such a crappy construction material. But in our case, this variation can also be an advantage. Different species and thicknesses of bark can be used to make a stiff but fragile curving frame that can then be covered with layers of laminated bark that become much stronger and start to hold their form. For strength, whatever we design to be built out of paperbark needs to consist of a lot of areas of tight double curvature. This makes it pretty hard to design structures from paperbark just on the fly, making it up as you go, because you really need a guide while you're working or everything just turns into a floppy mess. Luckily, these curving forms are nice and easy to model in design software like Rhino, and together with architecture students from RMIT, we came up with a set of parts that fit together to form a bark wall. We used this digital model of the parts, viewed in augmented reality, as the guide that we needed for assembling bark into frames that were simultaneously clad to form nice stiff structures that could be transported into our office, where they're now a partition wall.
Okay, so, here, clads from there to here.
Yeah.
So it goes sweep, and then it goes a bit more, and then it tucks over and it donuts in here.
It's really hard to see what you're doing when you're only working from the wireframe in augmented reality, so we also used a depth camera on the HoloLens to scan the bark while we're assembling it and show how closely the bark matched our digital design. The different colors and textures of the bark can be used to create a palette that doesn't exist in the digital model, which is just a flat grey surface, but is instead made up by the fabrication team on the fly. And so these sculptures capture both qualities of analog craft and the smooth curvature of the digital modeling software that was used to design them. This exact same technique of building curving structures from irregular materials in augmented reality could be applied to other found materials that are often overlooked, like river stones or other kind of granite material just collected from the bush, or branches from trees that have maybe fallen down and are irregular, unprocessed timber, or even material like bamboo in other parts of the world. It could also work with conventional materials like strips of steel, and this might be a way to scale these processes up. Or, because the only tools required are the battery-powered HoloLens, some adhesive and some staples, continuing this project might involve taking the HoloLens to the bush and working directly with the bark on site rather than transporting the bark into our workshop and making a huge mess. And it would be amazing to randomly discover a strange bark shelter on a remote bushwalk somewhere, and this is the experience that we'd love to create.